how do we ensure that we stay healthy and our children stay healthy as a species. And the interesting thing was, once we developed the vaccine for polio, we really sort of had dealt with measles, mumps, chickenpox, everything. By the 50s, we no longer had to worry about healthcare. It was implied, and we started to have policies within the major world that said we will take care of ourselves and each other on a healthcare basis. And then what came from that was education. The idea that everybody deserves an education, right? I'm leading you for a reason, okay? Because now that you've got all of these taken care of, education, healthcare, food, etc., what was left? Entertainment. We are a culture that we take all of that for granted now. It's expected, it's a privilege, it's a right, you know? So what's left is humor me. We are terrified by the quiet. We do not know how to quiet the noise. We want to be, in fact, we want to take the noise up to another level where it becomes all. So the fact is, entertainment has become, and here's the interesting thing, it is what we expect in all of our technology. It is not enough that it is a phone. It has to have video, we have to be able to play games, it has to have music, it has to, does that make sense? And here's the key, and this is where I'm leading you, very important, key point that you need to take away, is this. What are the ramifications? First and foremost, in the new marketing model, you must understand the single largest challenge we have is attention span. It is getting somebody's attention, and it is keeping somebody's attention. Okay? Does that differ from a B2B to B2C? Absolutely. Because here's the interesting thing. On a B2C level, business to consumer level, you have to understand something that is absolutely key. They do not read. They do not read. They are skimmers. Does that make sense? How does that impact us? It is, if you are doing a direct mail campaign on a B2C level, do not write a book. Do not write a story. Do not try to enchant them. Do not try and give them a story or a fairy tale. Give them bullet points. Make it large type. Use a highlighter. Whatever you have to do, because that is all the time that they will give you. Does that make sense? Imperative. Yes, please.
Sorry for interrupting quickly, but when you say they, you mean people in general?
Yes, people in general.
Joe Schmo, I mean, it could be, because you could have different audiences.
Joe, whomever you want to call it, absolutely. Keep in mind one thing. When they tested, when they did the global testing for reading and math, the United States came in 24th and 27th, respectively. We are not readers. Why? Anyone? Pardon? Impatient for one. In a rush. What else?
A lot of distractions.
A lot of distractions. Key point. And another one, you know, I'm giving you, by the way, I'm giving you like 3 different seminars in one, but we're all friends and we had lunch together, for God's sake. Come on. Why? Because the interesting thing is, we were led to believe that multitasking is a good thing. And now only science is proving, in fact, that it is not a good thing. That all it says is that you can do a lot of things somewhat, but nothing well. Why am I sharing that with you? Because right now, if you're reading the journals, it is going to impact human resource and it's going to impact education, which is at a human resource level. They are going to start requesting managers to ask their employees, or people who report to them, to get them to focus on a project. And you're going to see this roll out in a second. It's going to be called something to the effect called top of the hour. Top of the hour is, you will only look at your phone. You will only respond to emails. You will only go to your messages at the top of the hour. You owe me the other 55 minutes. Does that make sense? Period. So what you're going, and why is that? Because here's my point. If you're a merchandiser or a marketer, and you are having to, let me put it this way to you in a very different term, which really will hit home. Depending on what market you are in, major or secondary market. Let's not even talk about tertiary markets, but major or secondary market. You are being bombarded with between 5,000 to 6,000 marketing messages per day, of which you will only acknowledge 40, of which you will only remember 4. Those are the statistics now. So, my first imperative as a merchandiser marketer is, how do I become, first, one of the 40? And then secondly, then how do I make sure that I become one of the 4? Okay? So the idea is this: new marketing model. 360-degree client penetration with as many touch points as possible. Does that make sense? If I'm doing my job correctly, I am touching your world at a lot of different touch points. I am coming into your mailbox, you are seeing a TV ad, or you're seeing a banner ad on a website. We are Facebook friends, we are Twitter friends, LinkedIn friends, whatever, we belong to the same groups, etc. If I'm a big company, I'm doing placement. So you're seeing my product in movies, you're seeing them smoke my cigarette, drink my car, drink my soft drink, wear my clothes, blah, 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 etc. Does that make sense? Okay? Because that's how I get from 40 to 4. My first challenge is, how do I become one of the 40? So the interesting part of it completely changes how we do what we do as merchandisers, as marketers, as advertisers, because we start to better understand what is the challenge. There is no more difficult job right now than being in marketing or strategic media, where you have budgets that are decreasing, but you have more choices than ever. It really places an imperative on doing focus studies, market research. And we'll talk about that in a second when we get to it. So, going back to Got Milk, here's the interesting thing. Goodby Silverstein does the research. They know that the American Dairy Association had done a wonderful job. It was just that they were being outsold. So they were looking for the brand DNA of milk, and they realized that the brand DNA had already been articulated and assimilated, right? So now it was the next, and this is really a nuance of advertising and marketing. It is, so if I've got you on the good parts, what's the negative? What are the pain points? How do I bring that out as an imperative for you? And the pain point was, isn't it awful when you go to the refrigerator and A, it's not there, or B, there's not enough, or in the case of milk, that you pour it and it comes out clumpy, right? So the issue was not whether or not you know about it, it is whether or not you have it. And they worked really hard, and they're the first ones to admit it's massively bad grammar, but Got Milk addresses volume, not the quality. You already know what the qualities are. Does that make sense? Here's where it got very interesting. In order to be able to take that campaign, they also needed a strong visual. And the strong visual was the, I have already consumed it. Aren't you jealous? Aren't you envious? Don't you want to be like me? So what did they use? A mustache on celebrities. So here's the interesting thing. They go back to the American Dairy Association and said, here's the campaign, Got Milk, this is why, the very, very extensive research. They said, so we want to show famous people having consumed. They're not going to be holding your product, they've already done it. How are we proving it? They got the mustache. And then they went out, they found celebrities, athletes, and politicians. And they said, here's the deal. We want 3 cents for every gallon of milk produced by the dairy people. 3 cents. They raised $47 million. What most people don't realize is, in fact, that all of the celebrities, all of the athletes, all of the politicians gave their time for free for those photo sessions. They were never paid a penny. The $47 million went into placement to put it in as many different publications, billboards, and TV commercials to get the concept of got milk across. Does that make sense?
Who got the 3 cents?
They charge the dairy people 3 cents for every gallon of milk that they produced. Because they were the beneficiaries, and they were the ones that were losing.
There's like a trade board to the milk.
Yeah, the American Dairy Association. Now, here's the interesting thing. Out of it all, the bottom line, did it help the American Dairy Association? Actually, the only thing that it's done is at this point, the American Dairy Association is breaking even. With all of that, and the single most popular advertising campaign in history, what they did is they took this nosedive and basically brought it up and flatlined it. And to a certain degree, that is why we're paying as much as we are for milk. But my point is this. When we start to understand our constituency and we understand what motivates them, in many cases, we have all done a great job of getting the point across. Now it is a question of how do we find the pain points to make them understand that if you did not have your service or your product, how would they, in fact, how would their lives suffer for it? Does that make sense?
Because we were paying the dairy companies at one point money to throw away milk, weren't
Well, we were at one point, yes, because there was such an enormous excess. And the problem was that in this country, we did not allow them to irradiate milk. I lived in Paris for 2 years, and let me tell you something. Honestly, I could take my milk and put it out on my shelf of my window and come back to it 2 weeks later and still use it. Because it was irradiated. It had killed all the germs, everything. It simply did not spoil. Now, it was a special kind of milk that was, in fact, non-spoiling milk. But in Europe, I lived in a 5-story walk-up, without a fridge. And I wore a little beret and I spoke really
Be careful what you're saying in French.
well.
I'm just-
No, I am French, so I can't. But my point is, the fact is that we could not irradiate. We don't allow irradiation for the most part in the United States of foods. And the downside is the shelf life. Anyway, let's keep going. So the idea is when we start looking at where we've been, what I wanted, and I've already hit a lot of points that I wanted to already about what's happening in our new business model. The idea, first of all, is that we know that what's happened is that our budgets now are starting to migrate towards alternative media. What I really want to talk to you about is the concept of disruptive technology. Disruptive technology really, at this point, has got a much, much greater influence on how we do what we do and how we communicate and connect with our customers. So if you have not read about disruptive technology, it's a concept that you must all understand because of the way the technology is moving. I'm going to take you through a really quick exercise. It's fun, but it'll give you a sense. Some key points about disruptive technology. First and foremost, disruptive technology is always elitist. It always aims for this top group, whether it's personal or corporate, who first have got disposable income. In our personal life, it's called disposable income. In our corporate lives, it is in fact called capital equipment investment. Does that make sense? Okay. Secondly, it always aims for the group that really, really wants the cool factor. The cool factor is in personal life, I've got something that I know that you know is expensive,